Hey, welcome to Coleman Report Live. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Lance Sexton, welcome. Did you have a nice weekend?
It was a great weekend, Bob. Got to get out on the water and tube a little bit, which
good for you.
Put me in good spirits for Monday morning.
And we have Katie Wattucky. Katie is off the grid as I speak. Katie, are you there, at least audio? Well, I know we're working on it. Hey, let's go to the poll questions while we find out why Katie is off the grid. Did she go on strike or what's going on? As your pattern. 7(a) lending, the numbers are down, but I want to know about your institution. How are you doing?
You know, Bob, I look forward to seeing this because, of course, PPP really took away attention from regular 7(a) lending for about, 2.5, 3 months. So I would suspect that most will be down.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that coincides with the numbers that they have. It would be interesting to do a study. We don't have that, obviously, but lender bottom line profitability, are they doing better with all the PPP loans they did or booking some 7(a)s? Obviously, each institution is different. Go ahead, Lance.
It's like a lot. A bank I used to work for, Bob, had a return on equity model, and we were required to calculate it on every deal that we did. And, those deals that were fee heavy, which that's kind of what a PPP loan is, had a great return on equity during the first year, but down year 2, year 3, that's where it changes. And same thing's true with regular 7(a) lending versus PPP lending. PPP lending's return on equity is going to be pretty strong for this year, but nothing for next year, where a regular 7(a) loan is going to have a good return for years to come.
Very, very astute. Same question for 504.
I would be surprised, Bob, if there were not more in the same and up category because of the incredible rates on 504 refis. I mean,
interesting. I didn't think it would be that much. Go ahead, Lance.
Well, I think, Bob, PPP impacted 504 activity, but of course, participant institutions that I've talked to throughout the country, when they came out of PPP, they were talking 504 refi right out of the gate.
Very good. And our last question, we'd like to ask this question. June 30th is the cutoff, right, Lance? Are we still accepting applications?
It is the cutoff, and I suspect that it may be 50-50 here, Bob.
Yeah, I think last time we did this, we were well over 50. There we go. I think last time we did this, Lance, we were at 58%. Do you recall what we were last time?
I'm pretty sure you're right, Bob. So it's remaining steady. When we went from 2 to 5 year term, I think we lost a handful of participant lenders. It's holding steady. There's still plenty of money out there. Still about $130 billion available.
Mm-hmm. And year-to-date activity, Joseph, what is this through? June what?
This is through May 31st.
Through May 31st. Okay, yep. And as you see, the numbers are down a little bit, and 504 has increased. So that's...
These numbers, Bob, are not as low as I thought they would be, because that's October 1st. I think Joseph said through May 31st.
Right.
So there are still, you've got June, July, and August to contribute to matching 2019's efforts. So, there's a possibility that it will equal or exceed 2019. 504, the dollar amounts are easily going to exceed what happened last year, and probably the loan numbers will easily exceed it as well. Hey, Katie's back.
Are you back, Katie?
Yeah,
Where'd you go?
yeah. I had to restart my computer, and I don't know what was happening. I'm doing audio through my phone now.
All right. Well, welcome back, Katie. Good to see you. Franchise activity. Those numbers surprise you, Lance?
I don't have a great surprise. I just wonder how much, because a lot of franchises, Bob, now, we all know there are tons of different types of business arenas that franchise operate in, but restaurants and hotels are a big part of franchise lending. And I do not see, if I were trying to pick a crystal ball, I don't really see 2019 getting exceeded, because I think a lot of participant lending institutions are probably a little cautious in those two industry categories.
Right. It's pretty tough making a loan to a business that is still shuttered under 7A PPP. Obviously, we understand why. But that's an interesting one. Katie, let's bring you in for the conversation. What's going on with, first of all, I guess we have a rescission of the SBA interim rule. What's that all about?
So they gave us some updated information with this new interim final rule, and I think Joseph just kind of added this slide to kind of give us an idea of the things that are getting adjusted and changed. Obviously, with the recent passing of the Flexibility Act, we're going to need some adjustments. So some of those rules that were originally in place a couple months ago, we obviously needed to adjust those. And I believe they are attached in your handouts if you want to go look over those.
Yeah, very good. And let's make sure we use spell check in the future. I don't know what rescission is. Anyway, go ahead, Lance.
Bob, the fun part of this is personal resource test. We've had it for a long time. It went away. They brought it back, and now it's going away again.
Yeah.
The personal resource test, I'm not even sure SBA needs to include it going forward, because the COVID-19 situation knocked that out. Now, one thing it's important to note to participant lenders, just because there's not a personal resource test does not mean that you can ignore the liquidity on a personal financial statement of one of the owners of the business. So the fact that the personal resource test is not required now doesn't mean you can take a PFS where the guarantor has $10 million in money market accounts and say, oh, we're going to lend this borrower $2 million. You still have to take a look.
Yeah, there's no set guidance on that, other than you know it when you see it. As you said, if someone has a $500,000 in money market account in the business, and they want a $100,000 loan, you can do it, but you better document very well what's going on with that $500,000. We've talked before, legitimate kids' tuition, taking care of parents, things like that. Katie,
I do think.
Go ahead, Lance.
Bob, you're right on point. It does need to be addressed. You do need to look at the personal liquidity of the guarantors and make sure that if there's excess, that you're addressing that in credit elsewhere and explaining why they can't use that in the business.
Katie, SBA has rolled out their Main Street Lending Program, which is what I grew up in, used to be called the middle market. Give us a quick overview of what this program is.
So this program is really going to be up and running and working the way it's intended by the end of the month, when the PPP program is supposed to be ending. What it is it's 3 different facilities: the new loan facility, priority loan facility, and expanded loan facility. And they offer loans ranging from $250,000 to $300 million. It's ideally supposed to be helping the small and mid-sized businesses the most. And that's going to be for, they are loans. They are not a grant program. So this is going to go through lenders, and eligible lenders include your usual banks and lending institutions, U.S. branches of agencies and foreign banks, and holding companies. So most of the usual suspects. Eligible borrowers, the nice thing about this program is if you have already received a PPP loan or an EIDL loan, you may still participate in this program and get one of these loans as well. So it's useful in that sense.
Katie, talk to me about logistics. Is this set up? The lenders is this going to be ready to rock and roll become on July 1? Are we, is it the fee reimbursement the same as PPP? Do we know all those nitty gritty details?
So actually, I think the last slide went into more of the details, but what it is the applicant's going to reach out to a lender, and the lender will do the loan for them. And then the special purpose vehicles, so 3 different facilities, will purchase that loan from the lender. So they buy 95% of it, and the lender will retain 5% of it.
And what about, there were no personal guarantees under PPP. Do we have personal guarantees under Main Street lending?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard much about that.
Okay. Lance, can you add anything to this? Anything else that you know about this program?
It's like a number of things that we do not have all the details in terms of underwriting. I just don't know, Bob. I don't know about personal guarantees, collateral. I would suspect that probably will follow similar underwriting standards or somewhat similar underwriting standards. Well,
the key I heard was lender must retain 5%, so the structure is a little bit different than PPP. Obviously, we'll be getting more guidance, and we will share that with everyone. Katie, talk about disconnect. The world's gone mad, but small business optimism is growing. Tell us about that.
So we did see a huge drop in optimism, of course, due to the COVID crisis and also due to some of the recent civil injustice. But it does seem like it's picking up, and small businesses are starting to say that they're feeling more comfortable. We started to report on this last week, and just looking at multiple resources, multiple sources now, we're seeing a lot of different small business optimism charts say they are going up. They're a little more comfortable. You're starting to see some jobs return. 34% of small businesses reopened last month, which is significantly more than was originally expected. So that's great news. Although earning trends have declined 6 points, so this is, I think, one of the concerns that continues to go on with small businesses right now is the need for a lot of these products is still not out there. People aren't quite going out to go shopping for clothing quite yet, things like that aren't necessary. It's still mostly necessities. So a lot of small businesses are worried, how do we get people back into our business? What
I like, Katie, is your very last line here. 3%, 30. Let's go with the positive number. 33% say all their credit needs are being met. 52%, I don't need a loan yet. I'm okay right now. Only 3% have issues. I think that's a very positive stat.
Right, and that just means that the PPP program is probably not going to run out. If there's only 3% that still need it, I think there's probably plenty of money in that program for that 3% to get what they need and to be fine.
Very good. We have a bunch of questions. Let's go to those. Let's start with Jennifer. She said we received the new forms and were advised not to use it by one of the district offices we work with, but not the others. Do you know if this is being used, Lance?
I was not told by our district office not to use these. In fact, we received the forms late last week. I got them prior to the district office sending them out, but we received them again from the district office. I'd be interested, Jennifer, which district office this is, and I would like to reach out to mine again and find out if there's a reason that you shouldn't use these, because I'm of the understanding you can't.
Jared asked,
when you look at the new 2483 and the new 2484, Bob, there's such a minute difference between those and the original forms. I mean, there's a couple of dates that are changed, but there's very limited difference between the two forms.
Jared asked the question, if we have a PPP customer came in under the 75-25 rule, are they stuck with that or can they pivot to the 60-40 rule on payroll?
The 60-40 rule applies to all PPP loans.
But he's saying initially it was approved at the 75-25 level.
Yeah, but they can use the 60% level.
Okay. That's
It
that's
don't
the
have
question.
to use 75%. Yeah. The Paycheck Protection Flexibility Act allows all PPP borrowers to use that 60% payroll threshold. Or as mentioned in an article, Bob, what is that, a cliff? Anyway.
Raman says, can we apply a second PPP loan? The answer to that is no. Correct, Lance?
No. In fact, if you attempt to apply for a PPP loan that has a valid SBA loan number, you'll get an error message, so it won't let you do it.
Mark asked the question. I have a question I would like some help on. With the changes to the PPP program, the deferment was extended to 10 months. Can you provide clarification on the 10 months? Is it 10 months from the note date or 10 months for the forgiveness? I've read publications regarding both.
Yeah, it's a little confusing in that there is a 10-month deferral now, and it talks about 10 months from the date of request for forgiveness is what it was. So the borrower has to the end of the year to ask for forgiveness now. So potentially you could have somebody that asks for forgiveness in December and be deferred through most of 2021, 10 months of 2021. So, I mean, it's like every release SBA has, there's something that is going to have to be figured out. This is one that right now, again, the deferment is 10 months from the date of request for forgiveness.
Are banks freezing credit lines for customers that obtain a EIDL loan?
I haven't heard that, Bob. I really haven't. Now, if the EIDL loan was, how's the bank going to freeze a credit loan?
That's the question.
If he's asking, is SBA freezing the credit line on an EIDL loan, I have not heard of that. And I assume he's asking about an EIDL loan that was included on a PPP to be refinanced. I haven't heard of that, but... Okay.
Interesting question here. It says, I think you got the notice information about Section 1112 relief wrong. It states that you can't do a short maturity that would result in SBA paying off most of the loan.
I don't really understand.
Can we do a loan? Can we do a 6-month, 12-month short maturity, and that way SBA does most of the payments?
I no, you can't do a short-term loan with and receive the CARES Act payments. It's going to have to be a longer than 12-month maturity in order to get the CARES Act payment.
You know, I got some other questions on forgiveness. We're still waiting for guidance. We haven't got it. So one of the reasons we're fumbling in the dark is we don't know the answer to some of these questions. Please feel free to send your questions. We'll get to them. Lance, give us a pitch about your webinar this week.
Well, Bob, it's exciting to talk about and smart to think about what you need to do when an SBA loan is becoming delinquent. Understanding some of the servicing options that you can work with your customers on to keep them as a performing SBA loan. SBA in the SOP 5057-2 in several instances talked about part of the, not a requirement, but one of the objectives of a participant lender is to find a way for the small business concern to be able to repay the loan. So we're going to talk about what to do when the loan gets past due, things that you can do from a servicing perspective to get that loan back on track.
Very good. And of course, we have our summer session coming up beginning 1st of July for our training. And of course, we have our data that we are selling. So thank you very much, Lance and Katie. Good to see you, Katie. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully I get this fixed before tomorrow's show.
Well, we worked it out. Well, Michael and Joseph were scrambling, and they got it. Hey, thank you for joining us today from Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Thanks.